That's meeting of the planning board. Today's date is August 9th, 2023. No, yes, it is August 9th. I'm looking at the time. So at this time, we'd stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we have the agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have public comment. Nobody wants to speak? Good. Shorter meeting. Old business. We do not have any old business. And at this point, because it is a special meeting, we're going to go right into new business. And our new business is we're going to look at the draft land use plan update. At this time, Andrea Reardon, how do you spell it?
RADFORD.
Okay, from Stewart Inc. is going to go over the plan that she submitted.
Thank you.
I also would request that we hold questions for her until she finishes, because some of our questions may be answered while she's doing the presentation, and that way we could expedite the meeting a little bit better.
Okay. Thank you for having me this evening. You had me confused on the date too. I've been thinking it's August 10th all day today, but I'm a day ahead. So like you said, I'll be going over the draft comprehensive CAMA land use plan tonight. I'll introduce you a little bit to the process, the purpose, and the schedule. We'll review the vision goals, the outline of the document, point out the changes that have been made to the draft future land use map, and discuss some of the draft plan recommendations, and then discuss the next steps. And I'd be happy to answer any questions once we get to that point. So what is a comprehensive land use plan? Comprehensive land use plan is a document that shares a community conversation about shared goals and vision. It's a way to collect and agree on a shared community vision. It helps leaders prioritize community goals and helps guide rezonings and land use decisions. It's also mandated by the state as a condition to continue to apply zoning regulations. Comprehensive land use plan will contain some elements like vision and goals, land use, parks and recreation, economic development, infrastructure and services and utilities, transportation, and since yours is also a CAMA plan, CAMA, which is the Coastal Area Management Act, has land use management topic areas that have to be covered. Those are public access, land use compatibility, infrastructure carrying capacity, natural hazards, and water quality. Project schedule, this is just a quick brief overview of the project schedule, showing that we begun this process in September of last year, and the yellow circle indicates tonight's meeting. So we're almost there, but we're not finished yet. So the plan development process includes a lot of public outreach, and like I said, the plan purpose of the document is to document a community conversation. So we began this process with a community tour and a review of existing plans and gathering data. And the first day of the tour, we had some stakeholder meetings. We met with staff and other individuals, and then we had a public meeting. So we engaged with the community right from the start. So after that, we went back to the office, gathered some more information, gathered some more data, and then rolled out a public survey. So in the survey, there were some questions that asked, have your current goals been met? Have they been achieved? To give us some direction. What's the community value? What is the community vision for the future? So after we closed the public survey, we began the plan drafting stage and held the first public meeting. And at that meeting, we rolled out the draft plan. So after that public meeting, we had some plan revisions. We had some conversations with staff, had some other members of the community. And tonight, I'll review that draft with you. So, like I said, we had a project survey. You had 583 responses. It ran for 1 month, and we had 2 public meetings, one in November and one in April. The draft document organization shows a vision. This is a broad aspiration for where the town wants to go. Then you'll have the goals, which are more specific aims that relate to topic areas that were heard from public input and that are required by CAMA. After that, you have a recommendation section that includes policy recommendations. These are used to guide staff, boards, and elected officials. Then you'll have strategies and actions, which is the implementation section. This gives you a discrete and specific steps to achieve the town's goals. So what we heard from the last public meeting was the community vision statement wasn't right. So we went back, we worked with staff and looked at your current community vision statement. You may see a few revisions to this from the current to this draft version. So the draft community vision statement is the town of Southern Shores is a quiet coastal community comprised of primarily of low-density single-family homes interspersed with passive and active recreational facilities, maritime forests, and open space. The town's identity is intimately tied to its natural resources, history, and residential nature. We strive to protect Southern Shores' environment, enhance the small commercial district located on the southern edge of town, and preserve the town's unique character by maintaining the existing community appearance and form. There weren't really any revisions to the draft goals, so you'll see a goal on private access to public trust waters, community character, land use, infrastructure, and the environment, and water quality, public health and safety when it comes to natural hazards, and ensuring adequate mobility for the residents and visitors to the town. So also we heard from staff and from the public the need for a section to interpret recommendations. So there's a section that shows you definitions that are provided for interpretation purposes. So what does consider mean? What do we mean when we say continue? What do we mean when we say encourage or implement? So you can go to this section and review exactly what that means. And then there's also a list of acronyms here because, as planners, we like to use acronyms. Not everybody understands what we mean, so we included a list. This is the draft future land use map. The only changes that have been made to this future land use map were the municipal and educational area along Skyline Road. There was a town-owned property that was omitted, so now it is included. And there was a paper street that we designated as commercial on to Skyline Road, so we changed that to residential. But the main highlights of the draft future land use map is maintaining the low-density community character that we heard that the community cares so much about. And it also recommends maintaining the small to medium scale commercial development that you have along 158. So you'll see that in red, all of the commercial is along 158. And protecting the existing conservation areas, open space, the canals, and other recreational spaces. There are 5 character areas. Residential is just that. It's mostly single-family homes. Recreational includes both privately owned, passive, and recreational facilities. The conservation of open spaces is these environmentally sensitive areas and open space areas. Municipal educational are community serving facilities, and commercial is that small to medium scale development on the south end. Draft plan recommendations, these include those that are required by CAMA that cover public trust, access to public trust waters, land use compatibility, infrastructure carrying capacity, natural hazards, and environmental water quality. Now, there have been some changes to some of the sections. So to highlight those, you had a section in the previous draft about local concerns. So in your packet, you'll see that that section has been struck out. So those policy recommendation and action items have been moved. So they didn't get struck from the plan, they were just moved. So the first one on the first policy in the local concern section got moved to the land use compatibility section and character section. The last one got moved to the access to public trust waters. And then all the other ones got moved to the infrastructure carrying capacity. You'll also see, I don't know if you have a color copy or a black and white copy, but you'll see
It's color.
all the changes that have been incorporated in this draft are the text that is not black. So it may be gray or another color. But really, the town priorities that we heard from the survey and from public input were based on these 5 areas here. So you'll see in the land use compatibility and character section, a policy recommendation on maintaining the low density nature of the community. And you'll see some changes to, so a recommendation on changes to the allowance of accessory dwelling units. And this will require some coordination with the SSCA, some guidance from the planning board and town council, and also, some more conversations with the community. Should you make those revisions to the existing zoning ordinance? You'll also see to consider enhancing some commercial standards in your commercial district currently. That this can include maybe changing, requiring certain building materials, frontage requirements, maybe adjusting some parking requirements, and including some landscaping. You'll also see, as far as environmental, in that section, you'll see a preservation of maritime forests. And one way to do that would be to either start with aerial imagery or LiDAR data to create a baseline of where these maritime forests exist, and that way you can have a baseline so you can track that. You'll also see in the transportation section, and the land use section, about establishing a corridor overlay and some coordination needed with Dare County and Kitty Hawk, since their borders are adjacent to Highway 158. You'll see to consider opportunities to the civic gathering space by vehicle and other modes of transportation, such as walking or biking. And something else that we heard from the last public meeting is to consider incentives to encourage permeable pavement and other low-impact development features for residential. So currently, you have incentives in your ordinance for non-residential properties to increase their lot coverage from 60 to 67% if they use permeable pavement. So kind of looking at the current regulations and maybe making some adjustments and including residential within that. Not saying that it should be 60 to 67% lot coverage, but, having additional conversations to get that right. So also you have an implementation section. This helps outline when actions need to be taken by staff or boards and provides a time frame to assist in accomplishing the goals. Ongoing means that there needs to be action taken by staff or boards, and you'll have short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and those are defined, I think, on page 116. So the fiscal years in which each of these items need to occur is on page 116. So the next steps are recommendations to town council with or without changes. And it was brought to my attention, we received an email yesterday from the mayor saying that there needs to be some revisions on page 50 and 54, right, Russ? And also the town manager had some revisions on page 78, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So at this time, I'll open up the floor for questions.
Okay. In reading this, there was a couple things that I thought were left out,
Okay.
and I know it's minor. It's a bunch of minor things, but I think that they should be included. For instance, the community vision statement, you have recreation facilities, maritime forests, and open space. I think canals would be appropriate to be
Okay.
placed in there because the canals are a major item. It's just very few minor things. Also, on page 14, under existing land use, you have about, the town hall, the police station, public works, et cetera. The cemetery was left out. And
Okay.
I think that's part of the town property. On page 14, under existing land use, it's just really minor things, but I just thought before it goes
Okay.
to final draft, or we could be just corrected here and forwarded to town council. But I saw a couple things that were kind of left out in doing it. And also the roadways, where you're talking about the congested traffic, that's page 16. You have South and East Dogwood Trails. I think Hickory, Hillcrest, and Wax Myrtle would be appropriate to add in congested roadways,
Okay.
because that's where the bottlenecks actually occur. And I just have one last thing. Oh, no, two last things, I think. The other one is, I don't know the answer to this, so I'm throwing this out, and Wes might be able to help, or you would. Under the infrastructure carrying capacity, and you talk about septic systems, is commercial septic a separate item, or is that not included in there? You have, private wastewater treatment plant, poorly maintained and planned septic systems can fail, failing systems, but there's no mention about commercial septic. Should commercial septic be mentioned?
What do you, when you say commercial septic, are you referring to for commercial uses?
Yeah, for instance, over here, there was some, I know they had to be reviewed before they built and redid the parking lot and everything.
Which page are you referring to?
Page 18, I'm sorry. And I just thought that if we're talking about septic systems, perhaps adding commercial, because that does affect things, so. And
Is that 17?
that's pretty much it. And then I have one other, pardon me?
Did you say page 17?
No, page 18.
Page 18.
Infrastructure carrying capacity. You talk about the septic systems.
Yeah, we can address that.
The commercial is left out. One last thing.
Okay.
And it's only on page 22. Just think all the other 171 pages, we're okay. But on page, it's not a sentence. If, under brief history, and just a grammatical correction, under brief history, yeah, it says in 1995, not long after he formed a partnership with two other investors. So that's kind of a clause, not a sentence. And since it's going to be an official document for 10 years or whatever, I just
Oh,
thought,
yeah, I see that now. Okay.
okay,
What page is that again?
that's on page 22. I apologize if I'm not giving the page number.
That's fine.
It's in the second paragraph,
Yeah,
second sentence on page 22.
yeah. And I just thought, might as well.
Thank you. No, it takes a village. I mean, we've
Oh.
received a lot of comments, and
I mean,
I've
it
looked at
was
this
only
plan a lot.
193 pages. Come on.
We've had other
you
staff
can't get
members look
everyone- Yeah. Okay.
And I just had on page 48, you referenced CMAP on page 45, and that is a blank page.
Okay, I'll make sure that we update those.
Page 35, major recommendations. Currituck Sound Bridge rehab, hasn't that already been completed?
What page are you on?
35.
35,
Yes,
hasn't that been completed? So the Currituck Sound Bridge rehab,
yes. It's just major recommendations out of the Dare County comp plan, the transportation plan.
Why don't we go down, why don't we start with you?
All right, thank you. So part of me thinks, so it is two documents. It's two different documents. It's a comprehensive plan for the town as well as a CAMA land use plan.
Correct.
And so part of me thinks that the title should reflect that. That it's the Town of Southern Shores Comprehensive Plan and CAMA Land Use Plan. And that in doing that, you need to clarify on page 6, the difference between the two. I think you want to call out the fact that the town needs to adopt a comprehensive plan in order to affect zoning,
Okay,
and also talk about the relevance of the CAMA land use plan on that page. Because two separate things, and I think it's important to clarify that.
okay.
On the vision, I thought at the June meeting, we had given at least a few wordsmithing thoughts, and they don't seem to be incorporated, where we talked about the town's identity is intimately tied to its natural resources, history, and residential character. And then that threw us because we used the word character down below, and that perhaps instead of saying the town's unique character, we could say uniqueness or unique qualities. But those are the changes I recall from back in June.
Okay,
I don't know that there's anything that could or should be done given where it is, but chapter 2 doesn't really talk about aspirations for the community. It calls out concerns. And then on page 14, you talk about significant existing and emergent conditions, but these are really like factual statements. They don't really conclude in any problem statement or goal or aspiration. So I don't know if there's a way to take some of the later vision and values and goals and kind of reflect those in the statements regarding land use, housing, other things. If that's not able to be done, I think that's fine, but the other things I think need to be done. In terms of process, so this has not gone to DCM for completeness review yet?
no. So the process is you make a recommendation for the town council to adopt it. Then it will go to the town council. They will send it, they will recommend sending it to DCM for the initial staff completeness review. After we make the revisions, it will go back to town council for adoption.
So it won't actually be adopted when it goes to council. It'll
Correct.
just be referred to DCM for completeness review. Because we should fully expect that it'll have to come back to us with changes from DCM.
And
It-
that's
it-
why, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And that's why I wanted the process to be this way because I'd rather, and I wasn't planning on referring it to the town council until after DCM had seen it, or had their review. But yeah, I was fully anticipating, once you all made your recommendations, can't let DCM do their review and then bring it back to y'all if necessary and then take it to council for adoption.
Do you know who the reviewer is yet at DCM?
Yes, Rachel Love-Adrick.
Say that again?
Rachel Love-Adrick.
Okay. Good, cool.
She's been reviewing some Dare County plans here lately, so.
That's all I have.
I'm
You're up.
sorry, clarification, when it comes back from DCM, it will come to us to
Possibly.
review once again?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yes, sir. Depending on what changes have to be made that DCM, that they request.
So anything major, like any major policy changes or any changes to the future land use map, I would say it would have to come back to you.
Got it.
No, I think the only other follow-up question I have, having reviewed it, there were some things that just came out at me where water quality was like a number one issue, and yet there were so many indications of poor soil, and also a test that was done on page 56. So I go along with the idea, is there something that we should have as aspirations from the results, not page 56. Page, 56, where they did this bacteriological survey on 9/4/11/27, and it was basically done in Gingai Creek, and it far exceeded. And that's obviously Southern Shore Landing system that's located right near there. Is it possible that we have, a leakage, or we have water that's being not fully treated and returned? Plus, we have Saga now also going to build and use the system. So to me, these are, it made me stand up and look at what I was reading and thinking, okay, I've sat on this board, I've seen Saga come in, and I know what he's planning on doing. Where do we go with this information, to have more testing done? I think that's probably a need. And also a wake-up call for the number of places that have been mentioned here about the poor quality of soil, and that we are okay for low density, not high density. And because of the 2-foot rise that we're going to see in water, again, is this where we add something to this document or down the road?
So your community is not really that impacted by a 2-foot sea level rise. There are some areas that are impacted by that, and those are addressed on the future land use map showing the 2-foot sea level rise. So there's an overlay on that indicate those areas that may see some inundation. It's in the plan. Let me get to the page. So it is on page 93 of the plan. And there is a recommendation in the land use compatibility and character section stating to use these maps as a guide when making rezoning decisions. And as far as water quality, correct me if I'm wrong, Wes, but didn't the Civic Association hire somebody years ago that was analyzing water quality?
Yeah, I think there were.
That was me.
That was you.
There were volunteers, and then
Okay.
I think at one
Okay.
point the state was also doing it. At Sound Point.
So there is a recommendation within the plan to look at
Establish a new-
efforts to
I think
look at water quality.
It would be better to have the town not rely on civic associations to do that work.
Yeah, I think the recommendation is that, I think it says town start a new program or assist SSCA with their program. So we have that flexibility if the town wanted to do it.
Right.
That's in there already.
They did do a survey of what was causing some of the pollution and some of the problems and when I was involved with it at one point. And people thought it was the septic system at that time, but according to whoever they hired to come out, said a lot of it was water runoff where people have lawns
Right.
and one chemical is okay in this lawn, and this person uses a different chemical and this person uses a different, and all the runoffs is causing a mixture that's causing the problems. I always thought, I still think it was the septic system, but
Yeah,
know,
but this sample came
I-
back with fecal
but
pool.
what they came back with was, this was what was causing a lot of the problems is the different lawn products being used along that area that were being washed into the sound. So that was after you did it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, we tried to do some nutrient tests. It's hard to do it in-house.
So is Southern Shores doing any water testing? Wes?
Not at
Is-
the moment, not at the moment. But recommendation in the plan that we start a program.
I make a comment about this. Since we're talking about it and talking about this study and that study, I found throughout the report, there were quite a few comments made. And I understand this is not a scientific paper, but there were quite a few comments made that were just sort of general facts that totally should have been cited. Like the latest report from DCM says blah, blah, blah. That report really ought to be cited. And if it's, we tested some water, who tested the water? What is that report and does it reside here within the town? Yeah, I mean, probably the town administration has it on file, but I think those things ought to be referenced.
Okay.
Well, to tie it all together, there's a lot of mention about water quality, but we don't know what is sufficient standard to use here. What can the association or the town or what parameter should they be monitoring and at what frequency? You can't just say, the water sucks. It needs to be
Right.
quantified by an agreed upon system. And I don't think, we made an attempt, but it's not, it needs to be coordinated with the latest, greatest out of,
So the question is then, who did this survey, the sanitary survey report? What did that do then on page 56 that says the water samples were taken for these 2 months time frame? And there were 1,140 water samples collected and analyzed. So I guess the question is, and I agree, we need a legitimate survey, samples done and do it over a period of time. So is it the sanitary's place? Is that where you go, to that division?
no, where you take it over to Wanchese, where the water, you have to have it there Tuesday, if it's still like this, prior to 10 o'clock in the morning, and it has to be picked up within the last few hours. And you bring it over there, and then they have somebody that picks it up, and the state tests it.
Okay,
But
I'm
there
sorry.
was real strong parameters of when you did the soil testing. I don't know whether it was like that when you did it.
yeah, you have to analyze certain elements, components within 24, 30, 36 hours.
So aren't there companies that
NAG
you
said-
can hire?
NAGSET did it in-house. So
Yeah.
we contracted out
Hmm.
and then transitioned to doing it in-house, bought the equipment for sampling and took it to a private lab to be tested.
Yeah.
But the issue with that is what are you doing with the information once you have it?
Right.
You know, the testing referred to in here is done by Marine Fisheries because it's related to the shellfish.
Mhm.
And as far as I know, maybe they still do that in town periodically.
Yeah, they're still out there.
Yeah, but, and that results in closures. But that's also done infrequently. The town could set up a program and do it more frequently. But again, you have to figure out, okay, if we get a bad number, what are we doing with that data? What are we doing with that information? And ultimately, the goal is, what are you doing with it holistically? You know, is it
Run you crazy.
is it used to inform some policy or regulatory decision? Maybe.
They would, we'll move on, but they used to put a sign up. The Civic Association had a sign that would go up when the water quality was bad. They would put the sign up there at that point, and that's the only way anything was done. But that's the under aspirational and something that we want to,
Correct.
we won't be able to solve that.
Yeah,
Tonight,
and to
or-
mention the sanitary survey, the latest sanitary survey, the results were from 2007 to 2011. So
I mean, the goal in here gives the latitude to set up a program.
Yeah.
I think like you're talking about. So
Okay. You're up. Do you have anything?
Uh,
Take your time. Andrea, what I said earlier about the existing land use in West, also, when I said the cemetery should be added, I also thought, and I missed it, I wrote it down, the canals.
Okay.
Because that's owned by the town also, that's town property now, it was transferred over. So I think those two things are town property.
Page 46, down. Two paragraphs from the bottom, it says there are no well fields in Southern Shores. You should say public water supply. Because
Okay.
we're talking about them. And on page 42, towards the bottom, it says estuarine shorelines in southern shores consist of marshes, sediment banks, miscellaneous, which I don't know what that's referring to. That should be just struck out. Should be sediment banks and hardened shorelines. Reading that.
Could you repeat that, sir? And can you turn your microphone towards you as well so we can hear you and it records? Thank you.
Page 42, third paragraph from the bottom, it says estuarine shorelines on southern shores consists of marshes, sediment banks, miscellaneous. So I don't know what that's there for, and hardened shorelines. I think miscellaneous should just be struck. And, all right, and we already talked about the current,
that may be a category in the data set.
beg your pardon?
The miscellaneous is a category in the data set, the SRN shoreline data set that's given. So if you turn to page 41, On the map, it shows the data that was used. So underneath the estuarine shoreline, you have categories: marsh, miscellaneous, modified, sediment bank,
Yeah,
and swamp
yeah, yeah.
forest.
Okay,
And they don't tell us what miscellaneous is.
it's just miscellaneous.
It's just miscellaneous.
It's miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous.
It's just nothing.
Maybe it's best to order them with miscellaneous being last,
Okay, I can do that.
so it makes a little more sense.
That should do me, those items.
Okay.
I think. So Robert, it's up to you.
Let's see. So on page, page 86. Under land use compatibility and community character, there's a comment that says that our land uses that are in alignment with the founder's original vision. That sounds like voodoo. It could be in alignment with our community vision that we have in this document, or we need an original vision stated in this document. Right?
Okay.
We don't know what the founder's original vision is within this document. Also in community character.
So is your preference for it to say the community's vision?
Yeah, we have,
Okay.
we have the community vision.
Right.
A couple of times. And
Okay.
so that's what really counts, is what our vision is today.
Correct.
And if we want to adopt what the dead guy, what his vision was, that's fine. But that's not what.
A little more respect, please.
Wow.
Children grab it.
There, I mentioned this before. I'm sorry, I can't find my highlights right now, but it was back to the comment that I made earlier. There were some statements made about sea level rise
Mhm.
and the impacts of sea level rise, and they were just as if they are common fact, and they're not common fact for everyone. So what those statements, if you could cite, where they came from.
Okay.
I'm sure they came from international climate committees.
Yeah.
Studies.
No problem. I can go back in and add those.
Yeah. We haven't talked about this before. We keep making this comment or this reference to maritime forests. And certainly the town of Southern Shores has some maritime forests.
Mhm.
But I think what many people really care about is the tree canopy. And we have a tree canopy, way up on the dunes and in really high areas. I'm not sure how to change that at this point, but it occurred to me that we keep using this term that is pretty specific from an environmental or ecological standpoint. But what we care about is having a tree canopy, which is included in maritime forests. It's included in lots of other places. So the vision statement about trying to maintain or keep a character that includes maritime forests, it's actually beyond that. It's about a tree canopy. Sorry, I'm not more specific about
That's okay.
page and line.
That's okay.
And maybe it's for this group, or maybe it's for the council when they consider some of the wordsmithing. Because tree ordinances, vegetation ordinances, things like that, we want to be a little more broad than just maritime forest.
Could perhaps, that's a good point, could perhaps we have a tree canopy which includes the maritime forest? You know, that way, we are specifically stating the maritime forest, but we're talking about the tree canopy. So perhaps a tree canopy which includes the maritime forest,
In the vision
or
statement-
including the maritime forest, whatever is a better,
So
in the
so if we
vision
change,
statement-
okay.
pardon me?
In the vision statement,
So on page 103, that's going to change the land use compatibility and character policy number 10 as well. It says monitor and preserve maritime forests. We do have some action items that address forest and canopy coverage under that, but the policy just states maritime forests. So would you like to include tree canopy
I'm
in
sorry,
that as well?
Which page? you-
That's page 103.
You probably didn't even have to look to know it was 103, did you?
I almost know, I almost have page numbers memorized, almost.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you do.
well, LUC 10.1 on that page, it refers to
10.1?
canopy in it.
It does.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
monitor forest cover and canopy.
But I think what Andrew is saying is, I think to be consistent, we would have to say like monitor and preserve tree canopy, including maritime forest.
Correct.
I think that's probably a good idea. I mean, certainly the maritime forests, those are something that we should be pretty rigid about.
Right.
And if we can do something to preserve the tree canopy or encourage additional tree canopy, we should do that as well.
If they ever did an aerial survey, they might be able to delineate what would actually be considered maritime forest.
Should be able to.
Should be able to, based on soils and what they.
Yeah, the state's really good about having current aerial imagery as well. So Google, not so much.
Okay, do we have any other comments from it? The board?
If you don't mind, I'd like to just poll y'all on one question that I think it might have come up at one of the last meetings, but wanted to ask it again, because there are mixed views on it and mostly from the public comment, but there are references to 3 other jurisdictions in the document: the town of Manio, town of Nags Head septic program, and Pine Knoll Shores as examples of things that are being done as they relate to what's being referenced in the document. Do you all have any objections to those references and the way they're shown in the document, or are y'all okay with it?
Best practice examples are always good.
Yeah, yeah. I think the more, it kind of solidifies things or gives examples that we're not pulling this out of the air to some degree. There's been work done and research done.
Very good.
Is that controversial,
It's what country?
using, specifying another town's tree canopy ordinance or something like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And like using that, like referring to Nags Head septic program, I
Yeah.
don't think that's controversial. I consider it to be
Yeah.
controversial. but-
Well, like the Pine Knoll Shores tree ordinance, are we, by placing it in there, are we saying that that's the tree ordinance we like, or is that just an example? Is it okay?
My opinion is that it's just an example.
Okay,
Like Duck, they have.
Duck has one.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, is there anything else? Aren't you glad there's nothing else? Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wes, I'll turn it back over to you. Do you need the keyboard?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
at this time, we have a decision to make, and I'm going to ask Wes to chime in on this if you don't mind. What would be there's different options. We can send it back, send it up to council with the corrections we noted, which are pretty extensive, I think. So what's the best way to expedite this? Is there any certain order that we could expedite this?
Given the comments that were provided, I mean, you all should probably see it again. I
Yeah,
mean, that's just my thought.
okay.
But if you all want to recommend approval of it with the changes that have been discussed and just
No,
hopefully
okay.
we capture it all, or we can make the changes and y'all can bring it back to you all one more time.
Okay.
I mean, I would tell you, knowing how lengthy the completeness review is, that, I mean, my suggestion would be that we forward it on to council with the changes requested. I don't even know that you necessarily, I think you maybe itemize those. I don't know that I would go through the effort of making the changes yet. Let council review those changes, see if they agree.
Isn't he saying he's gonna send it straight to DCM?
Right.
Goes back,
And then,
goes to the council.
correct, no, it's got to go to council first for them to refer it to DCM.
That's not the way we had anticipated.
No. I thought that's what I heard you say earlier.
No, after you all make the recommendation or a recommendation, we would send it to DCM.
Would it go to DCM with our corrections, or would it?
That's what I was planning, yes, sir.
I mean, that's okay as long as council doesn't want to see it before they refer it to DCM, because DCM is going to be reviewing something council's not seen.
True.
We could provide an update to the town council.
I'm sorry, Andrea, I couldn't hear you.
We could provide an update at the next town council meeting and have the current draft with your recommendations in their packet just to review.
So this would be, the town council would actually get everybody's comments. It would expedite the process.
DCM says what?
They are DCMs, give it to the council, let them see what they think.
And then that way they can incorporate the changes in the version they send to DCM, transmit that back to us. We can review it, make sure they captured everything how we intended.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, we can just notify DCM, hey, this needs to be tweaked a little bit while they're reviewing it.
Any thoughts, Wes, on?
Well, however you all want to do it tonight. I mean, if you all want to just say, you recommend approval of the document with the changes that were discussed tonight to the town council, then we can carry it forward that way. If you all want us to make changes and you all review it again, we could do that as well. But as far as, trying to move this along and expedite it, I would say it would be a recommendation to council,
Yeah.
including the changes that were discussed tonight.
Yeah. That's my thought also, but I need a motion. Somebody. I make a motion that we approve the land use plan with changes noted as tonight that we have made, the corrections and changes, and that at that point, it be forwarded to town council. At that point, I need a second, if anybody wants to. If not, we'll discuss further.
I'll second.
Can I have a second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So you're opposing, so it's 4-1. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So it passes 4-1. It'll go to town council with the corrections. And Andrea, you said you're going to try to update something for town council also?
Yeah,
With-
we can go ahead and make the corrections or make a list of corrections. That's recommended.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't know if this will be on the September
Yeah.
council meeting agenda. We'll have to discuss how to move forward.
yeah,
And whether or not we want to do, because if the council is going to consider it, that means Are you suggesting that they have their public hearing?
No,
No,
no, I think they're just considering whether it's a sufficient draft to send for review.
I see.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I was getting
Yeah.
thrown off
Yeah.
because
No, no,
I
no,
did
no.
not want to have the public hearing
No,
and then send it to DCM.
no.
Because you'd be having two public hearings.
Yeah, then you'd have to, yeah, no. Send it to council, DCM, you know.
And I'm certainly happy with the list of, having it be a list or having them highlighted as as something that's easy for you to pull out or something like that, our recommendations. It doesn't have to be completely embedded and wordsmithed as far as I'm concerned, from an expediting point of view.
Okay, do we have public comment? Nobody's booing? Okay,
No pitchforks.
no pitchforks.
Torches.
Planning board member comments? Nope. Any comment?
No.
I have no comment either. Hopefully we'll have Andy back pretty soon. Okay, that's my only comment. Wes, your announcements.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. The next meeting, your regular meeting, is August 21st. Most likely will include the special use permit 2301 submitted by Gen Guy LLC, also known as Saga, for their mixed-use group development project off of US 158. We may also have on the agenda the lot width ZTA that would go back and change what was most recently adopted, as well as some proposed changes and updates to the planning board's rules of procedure. And that's, of course, if time allows. The special use permit application will be first on the agenda, and if there's time to get to these other items, if we do in fact have it on the agenda, then we would address them. But if not, it could just be tabled to the next meeting.
What do we get at the next meeting related to the site development?
You'll have the full submittal package, including site plan, overview, staff report. You'll have full-size set of plans, elevation drawings, soil analysis, everything that they provided, as well as staff input.
Okay, is there anything else, Wes? That it?
That is it. Thank you.
That's it? I know this is going to be hard, but could I have a motion to adjourn? No, he likes to stay. I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Uh,
See you the 21st. Told you. I told you.